Bren, should I kick off?
Yeah.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, I'm here.
I think, okay, cool. So let's get started. Welcome everybody this morning. Great to reconnect and share this time with you. We are incredibly grateful to Michael. He has given time, support, guidance, and expertise to hundreds of people through our webinars. Michael will share some of the issues and complexities we are facing as we adjust to level 4 and navigate best practice for our businesses and our teams. Michael is the leader in labor law and his reputation precedes him. Before I hand over to Michael, just a couple of things. If you could pop questions into the chat box, and Brenna will go through them towards the end after Michael's talk. And if you could all please kindly keep your microphones on mute, we'd be greatly appreciated. Michael, over to you. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thanks very much for once again inviting me. I always hear from my business partners here in the law firm that when people invite me a second time, they normally get me in to apologize. I'm here and I apologize if I said anything wrong or rude at the last meeting. In essence, what I do want to talk about, where we left off last time, and a lot of the people in the webinar now were at our last meeting, and I publicly thank Henro because I've been leaning on him. Henro Kruger, my colleague in Parliament with small business, I've been leaning on him a lot because people have been pretty desperate, especially in small businesses. Since that time, and you will recall, we had real problems. People couldn't access the UIF, they weren't getting paid. There were a myriad of problems. I was getting approximately 200 emails a day at that stage. And I really wasn't sleeping, not only because of the millions of emails, but also because I was pretty worried that people were telling me they're in a major situation, which they'll never come back from. And it's worrying. You know, right across the board, it goes from the middle class right through to the poor, where people are struggling. What has happened subsequent to that, obviously, you will recall in our webinar, and I think it was the first time we said that we wanted to call SARS in to take over a lot of the administration of the UIF. Well, then they did, in fact, call SARS in. I have to face a disciplinary inquiry eventually at Parliament because I said a lot of rude things about the minister in a parliamentary meeting, and I was then called upon to apologize. I didn't apologize. I said I'm not going to apologize, and the reality is that I've got to face that. I'm very lucky in that I have support from my party. I did speak to my chief whip, Natasha Mazzoni, and she said, go for it, which made me feel really good because at least someone's by my side. I then got hold of John Steenhuisen, who then said, he has no problem with what I said. So I am facing that hearing, and I'll report back as to whether I get jailed or not. I don't think anything radical happened, but let's wait and see. Well, I am pleased to report that it looks like about 85% of the claims have been recognized. People are getting paid. We're still having problems. There's still some businesses that are being rejected. There's still, and we probably have people on this webinar, they're going to tell us one of the reasons why they're here is that they're still being rejected and there's still problems. And, you know, only thing I can do is if they can email me again, let me try again. The ever-suffering commissioner from the UIF, Commissioner Marapeng, Tebogo Marapeng, is a really nice guy. I've now got to really know him well because we chat about 20 times a day. He is working really around the clock. I've never seen anyone work like this. I get a stream of emails between 12 o'clock at night and 5 in the morning from him, and I know that he's available right through the day as well. So please, if there are any further problems with the UIF, you know, go ahead and let me have it. I'm not actually getting as many UIF queries as I was when we spoke last time. So at least there's a little bit of good news. One of the silver linings that we've seen is that people are getting it right to actually register people who weren't registered before. Like I said last time, also the domestic workers are being registered sometimes for the first time in their lives. So, and in fact, this morning I had a lady who phoned me. She felt really bad and was too guilty to ever say anything to anyone, but she hadn't registered a domestic worker for the past 30 years, and she was feeling pretty bad about that. And we've now sorted out with the department that she's got in a registration, not at a fortune, and at least the domestic worker is being recognized. So there are some little bits and pieces of silver linings. The other bits and pieces of silver lining is that I know the UIF have now got their act together in the sense of they are trying to streamline their own systems. They're still not open. I mean, that's absolutely horrific to think that if any business was essential, it would be the Department of Employment and Labor. And yet they decided, no, they're going to lock themselves down and all went home, which is horrific. We're going to have the same experience, unfortunately. Wait for it in about a month's time with workmen's compensation. And let me just tell you the nightmare, and that's what I wanted to speak about today, and I was so keen to come on this webinar. The nightmare is about to happen. When people are coming back to work, and they're all coming back, we've had 1.5 million extra people come back to work now during this stage 4, we are going to see people being infected at work. I mean, it's inevitable. People are going to the shops, they going to the employment, they're traveling in taxis. We're gonna see it. I know that at Bagraim's attorneys, we've come back to work, but we're quite strict in the sense that everyone has to have their own office and everyone's got to be tested when they come in, and we've got to wash your hands and sanitize and spray and the whole bit. But who knows? Someone might have it, not showing any symptoms. My thermometer shows that they're fine, and we don't go near anyone. And that's not my nature, unfortunately. I like to sort of hug people when they come in, and I can't do any of that. It's terrible. But the point is, we are keeping our distance very strongly, but there are businesses that can't. Now, when you have a business that can't keep their distance, obviously, then the problem is going to arise. And then what happens is people will have a claim under workmen's compensation. And you will have to fill in, as the employer, will have to fill in the workmen's compensation claim. Now, please, if anyone's on this line and has not registered their staff for UIF and workmen's compensation, don't do it now. I'll tell you why, because that claim might be massive. First and foremost is that they might be away for months and they have to get paid while they're away. This is a situation if you're sick and it's a workmen's compensation claim, the first 3 months you have to pay that person. 3 months in full and for no work. Now, it was very different when people were in lockdown and they didn't come to work. I gave the advice, you don't need to pay, because they were in lockdown and they couldn't provide their services. If they get sick at work and they can't provide their services, and there is a workman's compensation claim, then you have to pay for 3 months. You've got to pay as the business owner, and in turn, you can claim it back from workman's compensation. Well, here's the rub. Workman's compensation is absolutely useless, a lot worse than UIF. Let me tell you again, it's a lot worse than the UIF. And if at the end of the day, workman's compensation doesn't pay you back for 3 months, I don't know how many businesses can survive. If you say have 10 staff members, you're in a small business, 10 staff members get tested to be positive, and lo and behold, they go home and they want to claim their 3 months. You've got to pay them. You can claim it in turn. Who's got the cash flow for that? I don't know. And that's the real problem. You will not get the money back so quickly from workman's compensation. So I've now entered into another argument with the ministry in subsequent meetings to when we had our last webinar. And I've asked the minister nicely this time if he could possibly go to one of the big insurance companies, Old Mutual or Sumnum or whatever it is, and ask them if they can take over the administration for the payment of the salaries back to the businesses for people who get tested positive for the COVID. And I've had no answer to that. Or even go to medical aid, Discovery for want of a better medical aid, go to them. Ask them to do you a favor and say, take over the administration. So we're going to have problems because, again, now the minister's saying we can handle it, we're fine. Well, at the last count, I think they had less than 10 claims for people who got the COVID at work. But we know winter's coming. We know that people are going to start getting sick, and we know that people have gone back to work. 1.5 million have gone back to work, and maybe under level 3, there'll be another 500,000 coming back to work. It's going to spread. It's not something that we think it might not spread. We know it will spread. The world has told us that, and it's going to spread, and they're going to be claims. So I just thought it would be absolutely reckless for the minister to say, don't worry, we can cope, when for the last 22 years, they haven't been able to cope with what they had. So now you can imagine where we stand at the moment. Just one other thing I wanted to touch on, and then I'll hand over to you. And that is, the minister initially announced to us, Minister Tulas Nkezi, he of the fire pool, the Labour minister, initially announced to us that there'll be 1 to 2 million retrenchments. In my wisdom, I thought he was maybe overstating it a bit, but I didn't have an argument with him. 1 to 2 million retrenchments is enormous in a small country such as ours. But of course, Treasury, which is a lot more conservative than the minister, have done their own homework, and they've got proper actuaries and people who actually look into this properly. Have said, no, the minister underestimated. And I got the shock of my life. They said 3 to 7 million will be retrenched. Minister is now saying that's the tip of the iceberg, that we're starting to see big businesses now reporting to the CCMA that they need to go through the mass retrenchments, because they have to report in terms of Section 189A, mass retrenchments we're seeing, and we all read about it every day, and we see it on telly and whatever we're listening to, radio or whatever. We're seeing the mass retrenchment. What we're not seeing is the thousands and thousands of people who are being retrenched from small business. Many of those retrenchments aren't being done properly. People are just saying, I'm closing the doors, you all lost your job, cheers. Now, the laws have not been suspended. You have to still follow the labor laws, and you have to follow them carefully. You can do all the meetings over Zoom or telephone. You don't have to have face-to-face meetings, but none of the laws have been suspended. So you can imagine what's going to happen to the CCMA and to the bargaining councils. They're already at their forehead with cases because of the national minimum wage. You'll recall that just under 2 years ago, the national minimum wage came into force. The CCMA got then burdened with massive claims, and they are running at full tilt. Now, if you add on another, call it 1 million claims that will come in, well, they'll never cope. So we're going to find a big crash there as well. So I just thought I'd leave you with that good news, and then let's see if we can answer some of the questions. There have been some questions coming in, so I'm happy to hear you and to hand over. I hope I haven't spoken too long and bored everyone. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Michael. Just to ask you, the questions that we sent you the other day, are those, do you want to go through those, or should we go through the ones in the chat box?
Well, let's go through the ones that people sent in, and I've read those, so just you read them out again so everyone knows what I'm answering.
Okay. Some of them were a little bit complex, but I'll just go through perhaps the simpler ones. Okay, so what will the effect be? What will be the effect of the new normal on temporary staff and freelance contractors?
Okay, that is important. A lot of people are asking, and in fact, temporary staff, let me just explain that the law is still valid. And the law says if a staff member is earning under the threshold, under 17,200 Rand per month, and they've been there for 3 months in any one 12-month period. So if someone's been with you for 3 months in any one 12-month period, and they're earning under the threshold, earning under 17,200 Rand a month, they are deemed to be permanent anyway in terms of our law. So just remember, because a lot of people have got people on short-term contracts, or they keep rolling over the short-term contracts. The law is clear. The law says if they've been working for you for 3 months, it doesn't have to be consecutive 3 months. In any 12-month period, under the threshold, they're permanent. And the minister does not want to change that. I've put it to him because I've said businesses are now unsure where they're going to go. Have they going to get enough work? Are they going to be able to cope? And because they're unsure of that, want to start entering into contracts. My solution on that one is keep people under 3 months when you employ them. Put people after the 3 months on probation, because it becomes a lot easier to be able to ask a person to leave if they're on probation, or you appoint them for a specific project with a specific time period that when their project comes to end, you're not going to place someone else in that position. So there is going to be a new normal, because people are, when they're opening up, as they're slowly opening up, no one's sure how much business you're going to get. No one's sure what the economy is like. And all my clients are saying to me, we'd like to go, we've had a few orders, but I don't want to just go bring someone back and appoint them on a permanent basis. So let's run that very carefully. So thank you very much to the person who put in that question. That it makes a lot of sense that we need to be conservative when we get back.
Okay, thanks, Michael. The next one, if an employer is not allowed to operate and generate income, but some work has taken place remotely, is the employer obliged to pay the employee in full?
No, you're not obliged to pay in full. You can put people, when they're on the lockdown, as I said, you don't have to pay them at all. If you want to give someone some work, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day from their home, then you would then speak to that person and negotiate with them and say, I want to give you a morning's work every second morning. I'm prepared to pay you pro rata for that. And then I would get that employee to WhatsApp me back to say, I agree. I'm prepared to do 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week. And I agree with the salary, because I don't want to have a fight afterwards. There are going to be millions of cases at the CCMA. I'm already receiving them at my office, and a lot of them are just silly cases. But people are desperate. They want money. So a lot of people still think that the CCMA is a big ATM down at the bottom of town. We don't want people behaving that way. So rather agree, if you can, that you're going to give someone some work and let them email you or WhatsApp you or even record a telephone message that they've agreed to do X amount of time.
The third one, do the standard procedures apply in terms of retrenchments during this lockdown period, with the cause of the retrenchments being directly related to being unable to generate income?
Well, yes, look, the law still applies. I tell you what has become the norm now is that businesses are telling me that they need to retrench because they can't see their business coming back to its former glory. And they also are worried that they can't afford it in any event. So what is happening is that businesses are going through the proper retrenchment program, Section 189. Please go and read it, have a look at it. As soon as you contemplate retrenchment, you must send them a letter outlining what is exposed in 189.3. If anyone wants a template of a 189.3 letter, let me know. I'm not going to charge you. I'll send it to you, because let's get it right up front. The difference is businesses don't have the capital to be able to pay the severance pay. That's the big difference. So people are saying, I've had Michael working for me for 20 years. He's been on quite a large salary. I can't afford him anymore. We're not going to have business as usual. I can't afford even to pay him his severance pay, because I'm going to give him a month's notice, plus I have to pay him 1 week per year of service, or I might have even put in the contract 2 weeks per year of service. There's no ways. We haven't got that sort of money. We don't want to liquidate our business because we've got to retrench Michael. So I've said to them, go to Michael and say to Michael, this is the problem. We will pay you, but we want to pay you over a 12-month period or a 6-month period or whatever. And also to say to the bottom line, say to him that if in fact business does come back to the former glory, I'll give you a guarantee that I'll phone you. If your position it becomes viable again, I'll bring you back, and you won't have to pay me back any of the severance payment that I've been paying you over that 12-month period. So that's the way to do it. And then I would agree. Now, I must tell you, I've been doing it for a lot of businesses, and not one employee has come back to me and said, no, I'm not prepared to take it over a period of time. Because then what we'll say, well, we'll just put you on lockdown anyway because we haven't got business. So you can still remain home and no salary. So, you know, it's got to be a carrot and a stick over here, and people are agreeing. So that's the difference.
Okay. Can an employer submit a UIF claim without an employee's knowledge? Can an employer reduce salary without notification? And how can an employee track a UIF claim?
Yeah, you can. Obviously, the minister asked, there were 3 stages where we could apply for the TERS claim. And everyone will recall how messy it was, because they've asked you first to do it this way and then that way, and then a third way. The third way, the minister said, look, he's had enough of employees applying for themselves. Employers must apply. He used the word must apply for all employees who are not earning their full salary. So yes, you can do it without the employee's knowledge, because that's the TERS. You must do it for that. You can't just unilaterally change a person's salary if they are working. That has to be done by negotiation and agreement. And that's a bit of a problem, because you do want staff to do some work. And that, as I said in the answer to the first question, try and get an agreement from that employee. Of course, the stick is that if they don't agree, then they get nothing. So, you know, we need to talk. The other thing is, as part of the retrenchment exercise, when you are retrenching people and you go to the staff and you have to do the consultation telephonically or WhatsApp or even on SMS, I've had one business doing the consultation on SMS, you can, as an alternative to the retrenchment, saying, listen, you're earning 20,000 Rand a month. We're going to have to retrench you. We can't afford that. But we could possibly bring you back into your position at 10,000 Rand a month. And that's an alternative. So you first give them the 189.3 letter. And then what you do is you say, let's look at alternatives. And then you introduce an alternative. And then they might agree to that.
Okay, thanks, Michael. I'm going to go through some of the questions now in the chat group.
I see there are a lot coming through.
So Joel asks here, he says, our foreign staff have not received any UIF payments. According to the UIF call center, not a single foreigner staff has received any payout. Please help.
They are. Some are receiving because we've been complaining about it. It's discriminatory not to pay foreign staff. I'll tell you what the problem was. There's been a major scheme going on right across the country where people were selling work permits from the department itself. The Department of Labour had insiders who were using their stationery, their email address, everything else, printing out work permits, giving it to foreigners. Unfortunately, it happened a lot with the Zimbabweans. They believed they were getting true work permits. They go to the employer and say, here's my work permit, with full belief. I mean, I spoke to a fellow, in fact, yesterday, who went to go and visit one of our leaders in the DA and said, what's going on here? He got this work permit. He didn't think anything suspicious about it. He was told to pay for the work permit. He had to pay 2,000 Rand for it. And he's got it. It looks completely legit. I saw it. To me, it looked absolutely fine. The department then puts it through their records, and they found that he actually has not got a work permit. He's been paying UIF all the time through the company. They've been receiving it and putting it into their coffers. They haven't come back to the business and said, by the way, this person you're paying for doesn't have a work permit. That sounds a bit weird, why they didn't do that up front. But we're now discovering that there are a whole lot of people out there that thought they had work permits, don't have work permits, been paying UIF all the time, and now they're illegal. And that creates a whole lot of other set of problems, such as a criminal act on behalf of the employer, or that's not criminal because they honestly believe what they're doing was right, and also the people are being deported. So we're finding a lot of that, and now they're busy investigating all the foreigners, and so they decided now they're not paying any foreigners until they've now investigated. They are starting to pay them now, but you actually have to then lodge a complaint again and send it in and say that this person wasn't paid, they are foreign, they've got a work permit, here's the work permit, so I'm busy doing that now. But some are getting paid. It's a trickle, but some are getting paid.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Is it possible to claim from UIF TERS if you are unemployed at the moment and last worked and paid UIF 2 years ago?
No, that TERS is set up for people who are not earning right now and are still in their jobs. That's what TERS is for. I presume that person claimed the UIF when they left their job and they were paid out for the UIF then. But there is no claim. This is not a general payment. What's happened now is that the president has put through a 350 Rand claim, which is for people who aren't in a job and are in a situation where they're starving. They then can claim for that 350. I'm not sure if that's working, and I'm certainly had no experience with this. I can't answer those questions at all, but there is a 350 Rand payment. I think it's a once a month payment. It's not exactly handsome money, but it's something for people who are literally starving.
Can you receive UIF and receive a percentage salary?
Yes, you can. And this has also created a bit of a problem. First of all, you can't earn more than what you were earning. So let's say I was earning 20,000 Rand a month, and the business said, no, we can only pay you 18, but we'll claim UIF for you. And then they claim the UIF, and then I'm now, with the UIF claim, I'm now earning 22. So I can't benefit from it. And so they're looking at that very carefully. But what they did do right in the beginning, and there's been a lot of people who rejected this. So let's say I was earning 20. The maximum payout you can get from the UIF is the half of the 17, 45% of 17. 20 from the business, I normally get 30 or 40. I put a claim for the rest. They've now rejected me completely because I'm earning more than the half of the 17.7. That's not right. They haven't read the regulations correctly. We went back to the commissioner. He's apologized, and he is paying the UIF. So you can get partial payment and UIF payment.
Okay. Can independent contractors claim from workers' compensation?
Only if they're paying UIF. And independent contractors don't actually pay UIF. We've now found another weird thing that's been happening out there in the economy. I've been speaking to a radio station. Their announcers or DJs or whatever they call them all got independent contractors agreements. But funnily enough, the radio station has been deducting UIF for them. So we're not really sure what sort of animal are they. Are they independent contractors or employees? But because they've been deducting the UIF, all these independent contractors have been claiming. The test, the acid test is, are you paying over UIF for those people? And if you are, you can claim. So it doesn't matter what you call yourself.
Thank you. If you resigned at the end of March to start 1st of April in a new job and you signed the contract, what now?
Well, you've got to go to your new job. And the new job might say, no, we don't want you, but you've got to claim against them because you specifically resigned from the old job. So you do have a claim against the new people. They would have to then, the new people would have to go through a retrenchment exercise because you actually want, in South Africa, once you have a contract, you are an employee even before you've reported for work. It's the only country in the world that's got a legislation like that, but it protects that person who's resigned, got the contract, about to come across, hasn't started work. They're actually deemed in terms of the Labor Relations Act to be an employee. So your new boss has the pickle now where they got to try and sort this out. Of course, if you don't get the new job and it doesn't come to fruition, then claim UIF because you're going to be retrenched from the new one. Might be better than the TERS claim, actually.
Thank you. I've been working for Virgin Active for 19 years as a group exercise instructor, but they deem me as an independent contractor, so they are not paying us instructors because the gyms are closed. Are we permanent staff because we have worked for them over 3 months?
I think you are. Just check that you're earning less than the threshold, which is 17,200. If you're earning less than that threshold per month, and you've been there for more than 3 months, you are permanent staff. I understand that they're not paying you, but they are in their rights not to pay you because there's no work, no pay, and the Basic Conditions of Employment Act outlines that very clearly.
Okay. If you do get paid a full salary working from home, do you have to be available 24/7, even when you did establish working hours and boundaries on your working hours? The director states that you are home and should be available at all times.
Oh, well, of course, that's not fair. I mean, none of us can do that. And while everyone's on the line, won't you all write a letter to John Steenhuisen and complain about me? My hours are actually supposed to only be 10 hours a day, and I'm sitting there till midnight, which is not very fair. And I have complained, but you tell me what to do with myself. No, you don't. I'm being facetious. You certainly are. Once your hours are set, they're set. And your hours are set from when you actually work. Most of us work an 8 to 6 o'clock job. If you do an 8 to 6, well, no one can expect you to go and answer normal mail at 10 o'clock at night, other than Helen Ziller.
If you retrench staff during this lockdown and you are claiming under TERS, can you use the TERS funds as part of the payment towards the retrenchments and severance pay?
No. Simple no. The TERS money belongs to the employee, not to you. You are acting in a trust capacity purely because the minister said that they couldn't cope with millions of employees claiming. They asked businesses to act in a trust capacity to receive the money and to disperse it. It's not your money. And in fact, I've had a lot of employers telling me that they want to deduct certain loans off the TERS money. You can't deduct anything. You can only do it if there is a written agreement between you and that particular employee. So there are some employers that have got their employees to say, look, we'll pay you a certain amount now as a loan, just to keep sorry about that, a call came through, to keep your money as we'll pay you because to put food on the table, but we're going to deduct it when the TERS comes through. That you can do. In other words, you can pay them up front and then deduct it, but it's their money that's coming in. They have to enter into an agreement.
Okay. And has TERS timeline for applications been extended since lockdown has been extended?
Absolutely. In fact, I think it's open today for May. A lot of people were complaining they were trying to claim their TERS for May, and it's been locked. They somehow locked down their own computer system. I'm not sure how they got that right, but it's now open. If I understand, one of my clients phoned me this morning and said he managed to get in and log in a claim for May. We're halfway through May, but there we are. It should be extended, and they will be paying out for May. The problem that we've got is that the minister said that we might be running out of money. And he said, we've got to look at that very carefully. That's a real problem. I'll tell you what did happen is when we spoke last time on the ORT Jet webinar, I said, no, there's more than enough money. There was 160 billion Rand in the UIF account, which was quite a handsome amount. In fact, I think it was the richest government department in the country. The problem is the president announced a R500 billion relief fund for all sorts of things, and he had to get the money from somewhere. And I have a suspicion that a lot of that money was then drawn out of the Department of Employment and Labor. No one's actually explained where that R500 billion has come from, but I suspect, I mean, this is a big fat chicken to pluck. So I think it's been plucked, and now the Minister of Employment and Labor is a bit worried about how much money we've got left. I don't know how much we have got left, quite frankly. We asked, but we haven't had an accounting as yet. But you can claim for May, go for it.
Staff on a production line cannot keep social distancing because of the nature of the job. How lawful is that?
Well, it's not. And the problem is that that's why they're busy saying in certain industries, you can only bring in 20% of your staff or 30% of your staff. And they are insisting on at least 1.5 meters from one staff member to the next. The bottom line is there are inspectors, there are not many inspectors, by the way, I haven't found one yet, but there are inspectors going around, and staff are complaining and reporting employers and saying, don't check this place and check that place and whatever. I wish they would go and check the queues in the SASA queues and that sort of thing, but they are looking at factories, and they are going to close down factories and give them fines if they find people closer than 1.5 meters. That's the regulation. Said 1.5 meters. Let's stick to the 1.5 meters. If you are endorsing, if you're the factory manager and you're endorsing people sitting right next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, you're going to find trouble at some stage. And also, when the people start getting sick and they're claiming from workman's compensation, they're probably going to investigate your workplace and say, why did people get sick? Why are you now evidencing 50 people at the workplace? And you could run trouble. Remember, as an employer, you have a duty of care to the employees. And so what you don't want is, you don't want people at the end of the day blaming you and saying, you didn't give me a mask, you didn't give me proper hand sanitizing, and you made me sit right next to Michael, who is now coughing on me. Thank you.
Should you wish to introduce reduced working time because of limited production, is it essential to consult with union and employees? If so, for what purpose? Do you have to wait for the union to give you permission and agree, or can you impose this unilaterally because of financial constraints?
I would impose it. Under normal times, yes, you have to consult with the union, you have to go through an exercise and then implement. Now, this is a very strange time in our history, and I think it's thrown a lot of that on its head. I would inform the union, especially if you're in a unionized environment. I'd inform them and give them 6 hours to get back to you. If they don't, just implement. I'd like the union to go and challenge you afterwards, or to take the people out on strike. They'd be looking for real trouble. No, I would implement in those circumstances.
How long do you expect the TERS fund to continue for? Initially, it was for 3 months. If a business had not needed the TERS funds, but may need it in a month or 2, will it be available still?
I don't know. That's $1 million question. There are two problems to the answer. One is, yes, they have extended it to May. And yes, I suspect we'll still be in some sort of lockdown in June. Whether they'll have the money, I'm not so sure. And I have a real problem whether they're going to be able to stay open beyond June. I don't know. The minister couldn't answer that question, and quite rightly so, because he's not sure how many people and how much money they got to disperse. They're waiting for an accounting, and they're also not sure what their liability is going to be stretched to. As currently advised, claim for May. But you need to do your own homework. If you're an employer, you need to try and somehow extrapolate into the future. You know that business is not going to come right until next year. You know that it's not going to be business as normal. I was speaking to someone yesterday, and he said, we're not going to have business as normal until next June, or in his type of business. That's what he said to me. And so I said, well, now's the time then to actually do your own extrapolation. Sit down and do your own risk analysis and see where it is. You can't rely on the department.
If you've already received your first TERS payment, what do you do to ensure that you get your second?
Apply.
Again.
Apply again.
Okay.
Don't just sit back. Apply again.
So then there are 3 questions, all related to foreigners, which you may have covered, but I'll just kind of get them. So the one says, how do you claim for foreigners once rejected? But I think you've said that you have to go and
challenge that and send in a query again. And I would suggest that, I mean, either people can write to me or write to Bocho Marupeng directly. They can get the email address. I'll send it to you again, but they can get to Bocho Marupeng, who's the commissioner. Write to him directly, and you could say that Michael Bagraim asked you to write. He hates me enough anyway, so I don't mind handing out his personal email address. But he does answer. He's like a magic email address. So you can write to any other email at the department. No one even acknowledges they received it. You write to Bocho, and I owe him probably the biggest bottle of whiskey I can find. But he writes back. Yeah, sometimes it takes an hour too, but he writes back within an hour. He's an unbelievable character. So at least let's write to him and let's let him know, because unfortunately, in the beginning of this, the minister said, no, we're running smoothly, no problem, everyone getting answers, everyone's getting paid. Well, I believe that was a lie, and I said so, and I got into trouble. But now Tobacco is coming back to people.
And then, yeah, how can foreign nationals get work permits now, and can they be eligible to claim?
I wouldn't hold my breath. Everyone, all the ministers, including our Minister of Finance, have turned their back on foreign workers. They're just not wanting anyone to come and take work over here. Remember, we have, as currently advised, I think we have about 11 million unemployed South Africans. We are expecting it to become 15 to 20 million unemployed South Africans. For a foreign worker now to try and get a work permit is going to be almost impossible. And the only way you're going to be able to justify it is that if the person's come in and they are a French-speaking professor who has some investigative ability that no South African can possibly do, and even then I think they're going to turn that over 40 times before they get that work permit. I think now's not the right time to try and even apply for a work permit. Forget about it.
And then also to do with foreigners, from Gary, a question, can you please repeat about foreigners? Will they eventually get paid out? We have received pay for all our South African residents, but none of our foreigners, which is a problem. I think you did cover that.
I think they will. I still have some faith that they will, but apply again. As long as they have a work permit, as long as you've been in the UIF, I strongly believe they will get paid.
When calculating if UIF TERS plus a percentage of salary is not greater than what you would have earned, do you use before or after deductions of PAYE and UIF?
Before deductions.
If
It's
we are
a gross calculation.
If we are having problems logging into
Sorry, I stopped.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Go ahead, I can hear you. Yeah. Go ahead.
If we are having problems logging into the U-filing site in order to update employee information, what is the best way to get this resolved? Have tried to call and send an email, but can't get through and have had no response to the email.
The magic word is Tobacco. Use Tobacco Marupeng's email address. Let's use it because at least that one's working. I'm not going to publicly say that, but we can say it.
Will you send his email address to us and then we'll send it out?
Yes.
Yeah. If you cannot pay the retrenchment package, can it be paid off over time? You did mention that earlier, that you can pay it.
Yes, you can. I'm just having a look here to see if I've got his email address in front of me. It's a simple one. Sorry, no, go ahead, ask me the next question.
Please explain why only independent contractors earning less than 17,400 a month for 3 months becoming permanent staff and not contractors earning more than that.
Because the minister, this was years ago now, I think 4 years ago, it was Minister Olifant, who was the Minister of Labour at the time, set a threshold of 17,200 per month and said anyone under the threshold would then become permanent if after 3 months. So there is a regulation stating that, and that regulation has been followed. In fact, they were supposed to, before this COVID mess, they were supposed to put up the threshold to 17.7. They haven't put it up. There's been no regulation putting it up, so it's 17.2. But if you're earning over that, then they reckon in their reasoning that you can look after yourself. And so therefore, if you agree, if you're earning 50,000 a month and you agree 3-month contract, they say you have at least the ability to negotiate on behalf of yourself, and you don't have to rely on the department making you a permanent employee.
Okay, from Elizabeth, a question: if we're still liable for workmen's compensation, even if your staff haven't been near your office or place of work for the entire lockdown? Okay, she obviously means, are we still liable?
Yeah, you are, and be careful with that one. You are, in fact, still liable. There are people writing into the commissioner. That's not Marupeng, it's another commissioner. and they're writing to him and saying, listen, we can't afford it, and can we have a break, and can we have a holiday or whatever. Sometimes the workman's compensation payment is a very large one. I'm involved in an organization that, which is an NGO, which has to pay an enormous amount to workman's compensation because there might be injuries, but no one's there. They can't have injuries at this time. We're trying to negotiate either a lesser payment or a holiday for a 3-month period or a 6-month period. We haven't been successful yet. If I had hair, I'd be tearing it out. But yes, my answer is at the moment you're still liable for it. And be careful with that one, because if someone does get hurt and you've opened partially, or someone's going to travel to work and they get injured, workman's compensation is a very, very good insurance policy for employers because it indemnifies you against any claim for injury or disease that a staff member might have. It's a fantastic insurance. So even if you're getting people, and there's another, I've just been reading a strange opinion from attorneys in Johannesburg, and they might be right, saying if you've got your staff working from home, and while they're working from home, they then pour some coffee onto their lap and burn themselves, is that a dangerous workplace? They're at home at their own desk, like I'm sitting over here. Am I now, can I put in a claim against my employer? So even if they're working from home, make sure your workman's compensation is in order.
Okay, we're going to just, I think, do the last 3 or 4 questions if we can quickly.
Yes, of course.
Is a company liable to pay mid-year bonuses if it's a condition of service, even though closure of the business has taken place during lockdown?
Yeah, I've in fact had a lot of those queries, and I've maintained no. The bonus is normally a bonus for production, or there's a reason why you're giving it. You're making profits, or it's production, or you want to be nice to people, or you want to encourage them to come to work. There's always a reason why you have a bonus, and it's not part of the salary structure, even if it's in the contract itself. And I've said to businesses, don't pay it, and inform the staff up front that you can't pay it because you're not making the profit or because you haven't got the production. And let the unions take that up later, but I wouldn't pay it right now. And especially if you are giving some sort of salary and keeping people alive at this point, a bonus will probably destroy some businesses. I'm not happy about paying that. And there might be an argument later, and I might be wrong, but I wouldn't pay it now up front.
We have rejected claims with the reason the applicant has an active claim with the UIF. Yet these employees returned from maternity leave in 2018. Do these team members qualify?
2018?
Says they returned from maternity leave in 2018, but when they've applied for them, it came back saying applicant has an active claim with the UIF.
I know that's wrong. The department's absolutely wrong. I mean, if they're claiming, if they're on maternity leave right now and getting their maternity payments from the department, that's active. But if they stopped in 2019 even, no, not acceptable. The department must pay. Please go and challenge that.
Okay. A question from Carmen about the film industry, where all crew cast are independent contractors. If someone reports to work on a specific day and has a temperature, so has to be sent home and cannot do his day of work, and they need to be replaced, our understanding is that they need to be paid for any previous day's work, but not on the day they needed to be replaced. Even if this results in a cost to the client, if it is a lead cast member and you would need to reshoot.
Yeah, I actually think if they're coming in traveling, they must be paid their hours for the traveling there and back. But you wouldn't pay them for hours not done. You would send them home because you're supposed to send them home if they got a temperature. But I would still have to pay. And we've got a minimum wage legislation. And anyway, that industry is a difficult one because some are claiming that they actually are employees and not independent contractors. Depends how long they've been working for, how much they're earning, and what the contract looks like, a whole lot of things. But I certainly would say that it's fair to pay them for their travel, their hours of travel.
From Anya, if our business has opened during level 4, yet our employees are working shifts based on only allowing 1/3 of our workforce back at a time, are we able to claim TERS for May?
Yes, absolutely. Especially for those that aren't getting their full salary, you must claim TERS. The minister said you must do so. And the staff would be heart sore if you don't. So please go ahead, and now's the time to put it in for May.
It's saying here, TER's website not open for May yet.
Okay, well, I was told this morning that someone did get in. They told me it will probably be halfway through May, but please let's try again on Monday, or try over the weekend because it's imminent. For some reason, either one person got in, one person in Durban, unless they were misreading it, but they reported to me they got in. I think it's imminent. Let's keep trying, but it's about time they opened. They did say May when they first stated the whole thing. What date now?
Okay, and just
The 15th, so mid-May. It's the Ides of May. No, sorry,
okay.
I interrupted you. I apologize.
All right, I was just going on to the last question that we've got here is the U-Filing website is not allowing external consultants to register and submit declarations on behalf of a client. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I do, because they can't stop them doing that. All they can stop them doing is charging for it, but they can't stop them putting it in. So I'm not sure why that's happening, and I'm happy to take up that fight with the commissioner, because there are lots of people doing it for others.
Okay. There were 3 or 4 people who emailed in questions, but I'm not going to go through them now. They are very long and involved.
Okay,
so
well then I can answer them directly.
Yeah, email them.
I'm happy if people write to you at ORT Jet, email you and ask other questions, and I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. Otherwise, I'll send it on to other people such as Henro or.
Or should we can we put your email address, Michael, in the chat box here? Is that Lisa?
Yeah, you can do that as well with pleasure, no problem. I know that last time you wanted it to come via you, but I'm happy if people write to me directly. There are other queries that are coming in about small businesses and about the Department of Trade and Industry, but I've been passing them on to a colleague of mine, Dean McPherson. So if anyone's got a question like that, send it through to me. Because people are asking, well, can I sell hot pies and all that sort of stuff? I don't have an ability to answer that, but I can send it on to the people who do have an ability. And we're going to see ongoing problems with foreigners. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
What is your email address? I'll just.
Okay, it's Michael, my first name, Michael, Michael, at Bagraims, BAGRAIMS, M for Mary, S for sugar, .co.za. Michael at bagraims.co.za.
Okay, great.
Yes, I see someone's put it up. Thanks, Brenna.
I think yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much, Michael. Just really, it's invaluable to all of us having your expertise and your time that you give of so freely, and your commitment to the community in so many aspects, but really just today and how you've and the last all the sessions that you've done for ORT Jet, we really are so grateful. So on behalf of everybody, I think you helped so much. Thank you. And
I think ORT Jet have done a wonderful job. They're shining bright through this process. So well done.
Try. Thank you. And yeah, that brings us to the end of the session. So thank you. And please, everybody, if you're not on our mailing list and you'd like to know about our upcoming events, please visit our Facebook page, which is ORT Jet Cape Town. Or you can drop us an email or put your email address in the chat box, and we'll be sure to add you to our database. So thank you, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone, and have a good weekend.
Thank you very much.